Welcome to episode 122 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the first time, long time edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. I think I used that title at some point during our time, but since there's two first-time winners or three first-time winners that I can think of, we're going with it again. It works pretty good. My name's Philip Matthew, and I'm here with my co-host Josh Fine. What's going on, man? Happy 4th of July to you. I didn't get to wish you on 4th of July, but, happy 4th. We got our independence, supposedly.
Oh, yeah, of course we had our independence, but, we had a great Independence Day weekend, great weekend of racing, of course, what we're here for, and great weekend throughout, Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR. I think it's probably one of the better weekends where I think all three series you saw a lot of action, especially towards the end of these races and throughout across NASCAR, IndyCar, and Formula One. So great weekend of racing, great to celebrate Independence Day and all of that. But of course, glad to be back on it with you, and happy 4th of July to you and your family and everything.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. And thanks to everybody, all the people that give, all the men and women that allow us to have the ability to celebrate, see fireworks, eat barbecue, go and get drunk, or whatever floats your boat in that sense. As I open this beer, we'll go over Carlos Sainz winning his first career Formula One race in this episode, in his 150th start, first pole, first win. But it wasn't straightforward by any means. Probably the most entertaining Grand Prix of the year by far, and likely one of the best Grand Prix, just based on all the craziness, all the stuff that went on, I've seen in a while. Tyler Reddick goes and wins his first career Cup race, beating Chase Elliott, or William Clyde Elliott II, who won the pole, stole the pole from Chase Briscoe, and then that was a interesting deal there at the end of that race, where Clyde had the best car, but the 8 car was lingering. Was able to make it happen. Beau, Tyler Reddick's son, couldn't make it through the celebration, so that was pretty funny. His Tyler Reddick's post-race response to that was funny when he saw his kid and his wife sitting there trying to go and cover him up. But that was cool. Another first-time winner happened in the Formula 2 series, so we'll get into that during the roundup. Scott Mclaughlin gets his third win of 2022 after what has been a pretty lean period for him in recent races. He gets himself back on track with a win, kind of inserts himself back into the points. The points leader, and what is it? I'm forgetting now. Why am I forgetting his name? Is
points leader is Marcus Ericsson.
Marcus Ericsson, yeah, thank you. So Ericsson gets a top 10, but loses ground to Will Power, who came from 21st to 3rd, which is insane, at Mid-Ohio of all places. We'll get into all those races in the roundup. We'll talk about No Neck getting the win at Stafford last week. We'll talk about the last paved track they'll be racing on this year in the SRX, Nashville Fairgrounds. F2, which saw Logan Sargeant win his first career F2 race and the first win for an American in the AAA of Formula One, basically the main feeder series of Formula One since Alexander Rossi in 2015 when it was GP2. F3, W Series, all ran at Silverstone, and F2 and F3 will be racing this weekend at Austria. IMSA at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park last week for both the WeatherTech Series and the Michelin Pilot Challenge. Michelin Pilot Challenge saw Robert Wickens win again in TCR, so 2 consecutive wins for him and Mark Wilkins in the number 33 Hyundai Elantra. Formula E raced at Marrakesh last week. Extreme E starts a doubleheader this weekend in Sardinia. So they'll run 2 X-Prix or whatever. WEC will be racing at Monza for the 6 hours there. And it'll be the debut of the Peugeot 9x8, 9X8. I don't know how. So they'll be debuting their Glickenhaus change air paint scheme. There'll be, 6 cars in the main hypercar class. And then a pretty loaded field, 38-car field, coming in for this race at Monza. And Supercars will be at Townsville. And that'll lead into the Austrian Grand Prix preview. Cup and XFinity will be at Atlanta on the Atlanta Super Speedway, and then trucks will be racing in Mid-Ohio. Josh will let us know what's going on the sim side, with iRacing and other gaming, and we'll close it. But first, I want to kind of get this off my chest because it happened last week, and it's part of the reason why we're on today. Of course,
tell us what's
July
cooking, Phil.
July the 4th. I mean, what's we call it, first time, long time. Well, it's first time, long time. I haven't had a rant. The reality of the world. We had, of course, July 4th couldn't do our show. Usually we do it on Mondays, but of course we had the holiday, so we moved it to today. Reason we moved it to today is because your host, executive producer, is free because of typical hacky bullshit. There's other words that I could use that are a bit more colorful, but I know we have a certain base, but I'm not really going to go as far with that. I've used them before to probably talk about Danica Patrick and other women that aren't good racers, which there are plenty, more than the ones that actually get the real recognition. But long story short, I bowled an 807 4-game set, and I bowled a 631 series. So that was the highest 3 and 4 game sets that I've had in that league that I was bowling in. However, the treatment from the moment I walked in was definitely poor, negative. They were not very pleasant. And it's something when you go and look at a league, we're in a 40-team league. The whole entire house is full. My teammate and I are 31st because we've struggled. I've struggled the whole time, and my teammate started to get back out of his funk or whatever. Team we were playing against is 32nd. So we're not playing for anything. I mean, we're playing for some money, but we're not playing for any money of great significance. However, homegirl, whatever the hell she is, whatever her deal, she saw fit to go and cry wolf that I had a high handicap. Now an aside, when you look at certain sports, like in I'll bring this to you, Josh, like in iRacing, you have your levels and you have your licensing and you have to do a certain amount of, races or hours or however it is to go and keep on increasing your levels, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, right now, for me, I actually lost my B license because in road course racing, because I kept crashing or making bunch of mistakes, so she got demoted, so I actually can't do the B class road IndyCar series right now, so I'm trying to build that back up and everything, so I'm trying to do a little bit more road racing, but yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, so I mean, just using Josh's example, of being the sim racer, as things happen, whether it's of your fault or something else, other, environmental things, people drive like crap, whatever. In my case, I've struggled and I haven't done great there. My average has been going up. We finished 4th in our full season league. We had fun. I would do my usual thing. I'd do what I generally do here. Relax, have fun, shoot the shit, drink some beers, see what happens. I could take off a big game once in a while, but usually I'd be in the same realm. And the way handicaps work, they bring you to a level where if you're at mid-range for that league, you'll get up to 220, you get a decent handicap. If you're really, really bad, then you're going to get way more pins. So at the end of the day, it all levels itself out. It's kind of like the handicap system in golf, where somebody who looks like who plays like Charles Barkley can go and play with a scratch golfer because they get more shots on a hole. So anyway, I had a pretty big handicap last week, and homegirl bitch was crying about it and was already copping an attitude and wasn't happy. It's like, honey, you're 30, you and your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the hell it is, you're 32nd in a league out of 40. You're not playing for anything. Crying about me having a handicap ain't going to change the fact that you aren't playing well and you're not going anywhere. So with that, she pissed me off. I took off a 233. And the fact of the matter is I was mad. And I said, fuck you. You want to, and then they go into her and she calls her dad and they start muttering and mumbling to themselves. And they go and say, hey, you're sandbagging. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're calling me a sandbagger just because I took off a 233 against you? You really think that that's what I am? That's who I am as a person. I am honest to a fault. If you've listened to 121 episodes of the Grip Strip podcast, if there's one thing that's for sure, Phil doesn't have a filter and Phil doesn't give a fuck. And he ain't gonna go down like a bitch. If I'm gonna lose, I'm gonna lose like a man. If I'm gonna win like it's the same way. So when that bitch went off on me and called her daddy over, and daddy wants to go and play me for $100 a game, I'm like, excuse me, sir. You're like 90, you're like 55 years old. You've been bowling for all these years and you're a 185 average. Get over yourself. I've bowled for a year and a half with good equipment and I'm already there or basically there when I have my shit on straight. And I'm going to get past you. So do you really want that sauce? Do you really want that, what do they call that? Do you want that smoke? That's what
he wants that smoke.
He don't want that smoke. That place don't want that smoke. They understand, and that's the problem. That place is a drama-filled enterprise. And to me, there's so many things wrong in our society, and there's so many people that are fucked up that seem to have power. And then there's people like this who think that they're in their own little world in this bowling alley, which is a great bowling alley. I bowl there for states and whatever, and it's run by great people. But these people are what destroy bowling and make it bad for people who are trying to build themselves up and get better. And fundamentally, I took off that 807 and 631. I rage posted on Instagram. I finally had to delete it. I freaking was saying awful shit. I was saying some really effed up shit. And it was warranted because I would never say that sort of stuff about people if they were just nice, at least had sportsmanship. No sportsmanship, accused me of being a cheater, being a hack, accused me or whatever. And then after that, one of the people that bowls in that league or whatever goes and says, yo, you got to stop drinking, man. I'm like, and it said that I said that I was a sandbagger. No. I was accused of being a sandbagger and I repeated it. And I went to multiple people and said, you think I'm a sandbagger? You think I want to bowl this bad with the average I have right now? If to have the equipment I have and to bowl the average I'm bowling for all those weeks, you have to be either have to be completely out of your mind or full of shit. So fact of the matter is, fuck people who want to go and ruin a good time for others. Fuck other people who think that they're more important than they really are. Because the fact is, the sport of bowling, there's plenty of places to go. And I've already scouted one place and I ain't going no more. And fundamentally, losing my business is going to lose business with a lot of other people because I know a lot of other people that bowl. And furthermore, I don't need to bowl in that place for my life to get better or for my game to get better. I can get better without a problem because I want it bad enough. If you want something bad enough, you can get it. You know, life is has definitely not dealt me the greatest hands ever, but the reality is I'm here now, and we're here now, we're having fun, and that's what this is about. That's what we're going to do, and I had to get it off my chest, so fuck those two C words, and for what they're shit, and that asshole dad, fuck all of them. They can all go to hell. They're all probably sitting there at the bowling alley, frying out about how they're losing or not doing whatever they do. You can all go and eat a dick. And I'm going to go and sit here on my Tuesdays. I'll have my Tuesdays to myself. And I'll be able to chill out. In worst case, if we need to go and sub out, we can go and do Tuesday shows. So thank you, Josh, for allowing me to go and have my rant there. I will now try to somehow or another transition from ranting about bowling and league bowling and how people can be to Carlos Sainz going in, and I mean, maybe we could use it this way. Since Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz spent a lot of time on the squawk box during that race at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, talking about changing positions, trying to go and do strategies, all kinds of stuff. And Charles Leclerc, by the end of it, was left holding the bag at a possibility of a possible win going away while his teammate gets his first career win. It was a momentous occasion, of course, for Carlos Sainz. His dad is one of the greatest rally drivers ever. Having the name, Josh, of course, being a fan of somebody who can completely understand the same kind of thing, being the namesake of one of the greatest drivers ever has a lot of pressure. Being a guy who got kicked out of the Red Bull program and has had to basically grind in other teams to get to the point that now he's a Ferrari driver. The performance he had for a good part of the weekend, at least the first half of the race, wasn't so good for Carlos Sainz. But in the end, Carlos Sainz ends up a winner at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, in his 150th start, gets his first pole as well, leads 27 laps, the most laps, one of four guys that led the race. It was one of the most interesting races this year, man. The battle between Carlos Sainz and his teammate Charles Leclerc, but who else stood out? Of course, Fish Lips takes the lead. Sainz makes a mistake going through Maggots and Beckett's before they get to the hangar straight, goes off. Verstappen goes and passes him. But then, like the next lap or whatever, he goes off the track going through cops and damages his floor. And then all of a sudden, Fish Lips becomes, ordinary. And his car went away. Ferrari retakes the lead. Things go on from there. But then another person that stood out was Sir Lewis Hamilton, because all of a sudden, in the last couple of weeks, Mercedes has given him a car that he can actually drive. And he did it at Canada, finished on the podium. And in this case, it looked like for periods of time there was a possibility that Lewis could have pulled off the unthinkable, getting his 104th Formula One win at his home. Instead, he gets his 13th podium in the British Grand Prix. We'll just go through the top 10. Sainz, Checo Perez from the back, who got damaged from Charles Leclerc, had to replace his wing. The safety car, which we'll get into later, is part of why he's there. Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso from 7th finishes 5th. Lando Norris finishes 6th. Max Verstappen 7th. Mick Schumacher gets his first career points in 8th, ahead of his compatriot and essentially his mentor, Sebastian Vettel, who both of them were starting in the back, and they got to the top 10, and Kevin Magnussen ends up 10th. Plenty of issues that went on, but before we get into some of those issues, Josh, let's talk about, Carlos Sainz getting the dub, the fact that Sergio Perez did a similar thing to what he did when he won his first career Grand Prix at Sakir to go and get second and basically salvage what was a bad day for Red Bull, but really salvage it and give them solid points while Ferrari was fucking themselves up. And Lewis Hamilton salvages the Mercedes day and almost looks like he could go and get that victory.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a interesting Grand Prix for sure. Like I said earlier in the show, probably one of the best Grand Prix that we've seen so far. And, with the way, things have turned out in this race, in this series this year, definitely there's a lot of action. And I think, the last safety car, well, it wasn't a safety car, it was, basically, the last safety car, you had Charles Leclerc, who was leading, and Sainz was in second, and then Lewis might have had a chance going. I think he had the best pace at that point in third, and then that came out, and they were able to pit for tires and everything, and I think from there it was basically a restart to the end, and Carlos Sainz was able to take the lead and get his first Grand Prix win. It's been a long time coming for him, and I think the last maybe month or so, I think he's probably been the better driver at Ferrari. I mean, I think Charles Leclerc hasn't had a podium finish since the Miami Grand Prix, which is almost 2 months ago at this point. So definitely a struggle right now for Leclerc on his part. But between him, Hamilton, and Sergio Perez, the last little bit of that Grand Prix, they got to racing there, and it was pretty entertaining. Seeing them basically at 1.3 wide off the last corner. Perez and Charles Leclerc fighting for second place, and then out of nowhere, Lewis comes and passes them. And I thought Lewis might have been able to get by them and then take off and maybe set his sights on Carlos Sainz, but he got repassed and a couple corners later by Sergio Perez, and from there, it was Carlos Sainz, Perez, and then Hamilton. So a lot of passing that went on between those three guys at the end. Really entertaining. Probably the most entertaining racing that we've seen so far this year. And it wasn't just them. I think Fernando Alonso was also kind of in the midst of that. If they had gotten to more racing, I think he probably could have had a chance to take advantage there. So between those three, really awesome racing. And then, of course, a new winner in Carlos Sainz. And, also I think you have to talk about the halo as well with Zhou Guanyu, his crash, flipping in the air, and then landing upside down in between the catch fence and the tire barrier. The car, upside down next to the tire barrier with the old car or pre-Halo could have been disastrous. But once again, Halo proves that it does its job and does everything that it's supposed to do as intended. So once again, we have another. I don't want to say miracle, but another example of the Halo saving a driver from serious injury or death there. So good there, and then of course with George Russell also crashing, good sportsmanship there. As soon as he got out of the car, he was able to try and go help Zhou Guanyu from his accident, and good sportsmanship there, of course. And we've seen him do that in the past, especially in karting. Callum Elliott talked about that yesterday on Twitter. Saw that, George demonstrated that back in their karting days. So good character there for him. So I think this Grand Prix in general, just a entertaining Grand Prix throughout. A lot of moments, good and bad. So, glad that we were able to have start off the Independence Day weekend of racing here in America by waking up and watching all of that.
Yeah, I mean the crash, we talked about it on Grid Talk, of course. I mean, Zhou Guanyu first lap takes out him, and he gets hooked by Gasly, was hit by Russell, and then Alex Albon was involved in that too. Albon ended up having to go to the hospital and was being looked at overnight. We haven't heard anything about his health in regards to whether he'll race. Zhou Guanyu was pinned in between the wall and the Tech Pro and the guardrail and all. If that thing had caught on fire, it would have been one of the worst things we've seen since like the 70s or whatever, and the early 80s with accidents in Formula One. Or, it could have been like Grosjean's crash or the Imola weekend in 94. It could have been really, really bad. But thankfully, the way safety innovations have come along, they were able to extricate the car without any fluids leaking and whatever. And Zhou Guanyu being 100% to get out of the car. Yeah, they took him on a backboard, and they went and took him for observation, and he was able to walk out, which is huge. Could have been a lot worse in that spot. George Russell, being a good Samaritan, ended up screwing himself, unfortunately, out of what could have been a good day for him and his team, because he couldn't get the car started again. And then they had put the car in a rollback, and all that became a whole big discussion. But he wanted to make sure Zhou Guanyu was okay. Of course, one of his best friends, Albon, was there too in that incident. And then there was also Ocon was involved in it. Gasly was involved in it. I forget. And Tsunoda was involved in that deal. So that was a big accident. They stopped the race for an hour to go and take care of everything there. But in the end, Zhou Guanyu was able to get out, and he's okay. So those three guys were out. I'll bring up Valtteri Bottas had gearbox issues, had to fall out. Gasly, they say, is a rear wing issue for why he went out, but of course he got hit by Yuki Tsunoda, his teammate, at one point during the race, so that wasn't great. It wasn't one of Yuki's greatest races for sure. The thing that I'll bring up is Esteban Ocon. Fuel pump issue at lap 37. At that point, Lewis Hamilton was gaining. He had just pitted a few laps before to put a new set of hard tires on, even though Karen Horner thought he should do otherwise, since Karen Horner seems to be the only voice anybody in the media seems to go to anymore. He was on new hard tires and was making time. I think it was lap 33 or whatever. He was making time, and if the race had ran organically, I think the reality would have been that there would have been a very good chance for Lewis Hamilton to pass one, if not both of those Ferraris to possibly get that victory. However, the reset, as Josh, you mentioned, basically allowed everybody, sans, Charles Leclerc and I think maybe one or two other people, to pit, put on new tires. It started over as a new race, which is why Sergio Perez, who was buried, he had been buried, he was tailback, gotten himself, I think, just past Verstappen. Verstappen was on his way out of the points if it had ran the way it was running. And Sergio Perez was probably going to get a top 5 finish. Instead, that restart and the ability to be able to go and have everything condensed gave him the opportunity to get to second. He didn't have anything for Carlos Sainz because he couldn't make the moves quick enough to get up there. Charles Leclerc held up Lewis enough to where even after he passed him, he didn't have anything. Even though he did have, in the end, Lewis had the fastest lap in the race. But in the grand scheme of things, that was that caution, that full safety car was another turning point in the Grand Prix. Amongst the, intra-team Ferrari battle and all the nonsense that went on with their strategy. Before we kind of move on, we talked about Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher gets his first points. Fish Lips ran him in and around the world, driving him off the racetrack like an asshole. His stupid fans and people who hate Lewis Hamilton will say, well, that's just racing. Lewis will do that to anybody. I'm like, no. Lewis would. There's defending, and then there's like the Verstappen method of driving, which he learned from his dad, obviously, which tells you all you need to know because his dad was a hack. And he drives people off into the grass, and he drives around like he doesn't know what a mirror is. He drives around like a freaking bronze level driver in an LMP3, the way he drives around and has no regard for other drivers. You'd think after Zhou Guanyu flies into a catch fence, and then before that, earlier in the day, you had one of the Red Bull Juniors going and flying into the freaking the cockpit of Roy Nissany's car in the Formula 2 race. You'd think you'd have a little more sense than that. But it's Max Verstappen, so Karen Horner and company will apologize for him no matter what he does. He could shit. He could go and anything. His shit is like gold or whatever. It doesn't really matter what he does. Fucking cocksucker. But beside all that, the fact is the way that the race went, Josh. That safety car really changed things. It really would have been a different race, I think, a little different race if it hadn't come out. But in the end, we can't take it back. It is what it is. In terms of Formula One, let's go and bring up their points. Oh, God, I'm freaking tired. And I have to do work. Yep, I have to go and do work. So what are your thoughts on some of those points? And as I bring up the driver's standings here, what are your thoughts on the race in general? I think some of those things that happened, some of the people that had struggles were, the usual suspects. Some of the people fell out. It was unfortunate, some of the Ferrari stuff going on with Valtteri Bottas, but basically, essentially throwing away. Alpha's day went away. Mercedes' day was sort of kind of iffy. A few other teams kind of had some problems there, but what are your thoughts as we move towards the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend, which we'll get into here shortly?
Yeah, I think, first off, you talked about Verstappen versus Mick at the end of that race, and Mick's trying to get his first points, and you said he ran him off the road, and he definitely made him work for it, that's for sure. And at the end, didn't end up overtaking him, but they still managed to get both of them in the points. So for Schumacher, is his first ever points finish in Formula One. So the Haas team, at least in this race, they had both their cars finish in the points. It was probably first time in probably a couple of years that they actually had two cars both in the points. Probably at least 2019 or before that, last time that ever happened. I think for Verstappen, at least salvages what could have been a possible victory for this Grand Prix. Of course, he ran over debris or something, caused damage to the floor, so he didn't really have the pace that he needed to run up front, of course. So it at least minimizes the damage from that points-wise, and doesn't give up as much as maybe what he could have, say, if he had crashed out on lap one, which really would have opened things up probably if he had done something like that. But, in the end, remains 34 points ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez, so still a long way to go for really any of the top, 4 or top 5 in Formula One right now. So there isn't too much to worry about as long as he is able to keep clicking away solid finishes, maybe continue to win or get on the podium for Verstappen. But I think Leclerc definitely needs to start turning things around. He's still 43 points out of the lead, and like I said earlier, he hasn't finished in the podium since the Miami Grand Prix, so he's got a lot of work cut out for him to do. So I think the focus has got to be to maximize the points, get onto the podium as they go to the Austrian Grand Prix here in a couple weeks. So we'll see what happens there if they're able to do that, or if his teammate Carlos Sainz can somehow overtake him, which we probably didn't foresee coming at the beginning of the year for Ferrari. We thought maybe that Charles Leclerc would be the guy carrying the flag for that team, but his teammate now has won, and last month has driven better than his teammate. So possibly here in a couple of weeks, he's only 11 points behind his teammate. So definitely you could see Carlos Sainz, at least in the next race or two, potentially overtaking his teammate there and taking at least third in the championship. So we'll see how that goes. And then Lewis still in sixth place. Teammate crashed out of the race, so he's able to gain on his teammate and everything, but still in sixth place. But the way things are going for Lewis Hamilton, possibly maybe not this race. Thought maybe he could have gotten a victory here, but he didn't. But possibly in the future, maybe could see another podium at least for Lewis Hamilton. And if he can consistently finish on the podium, eventually he'll get to the position to overtake his teammate and possibly be a guy that could get into maybe third place or at some point later in the year if they're able to maintain that level of consistency. But still got a long way to go, and definitely they still don't quite have the pace of the Ferraris, or they somewhat maybe on level Ferrari, but definitely not in the level of Red Bull there. So still a long way to go, but we got a long season, and we'll see what happens for Lewis and Carlos Sainz, and even for Verstappen. Things can change fairly quickly here in Formula One. But we got that, and then I think the other team you have to look at is McLaren. You have one driver, Lando Norris, seemingly finding solid points finishes, but then you also have teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who is the only guy that has won for McLaren the last year or two. So there's that, but then he's also hadn't been able to find any handling, so hasn't been able to score any points, and likely probably will find himself out of a seat here at the end of the season. Unfortunate for him, but that's how it goes. So I think there's still a lot of movement that can happen throughout the rest of the season. There's still long ways to go. We still haven't gotten to the F1 summer break, so a lot of things that can still be in play, and nothing is for sure here in Formula One until the end of the season. So definitely have to look out for a lot of things and keep your eye out for potential stories and potential movement in the standings.
As I have to go and text one of my clients, since he decided now, hours before we're supposed to go and have our meeting, that I need to go and cancel my appointment. Yeah, you knew you needed to change your appointment, you fuck. You could have went and let me know long before that, fucking cocksucker. But with that, we'll get into the points. I mean, we have a busy month of Formula One racing going on here. So Austria, of course, this week, a week break. Then you have France and you have Hungary. After that, you have the summer break. So it's kind of like MotoGP right now is in their summer break. Pecco Bagnaia took that to a different level and decided to go and get a DWI and wreck a car. So that's the guy that finished second in the World Championship last year, getting a .08, or .8 or whatever. So whatever the number was, it's on motorsport.com, and I was like, wow, guy who's one of the best motorcycle riders in the world is getting DWIs just for fun. Tells you all you need to know about riding for Ducati, I guess. But that's beside the point. Fish Lips has 34-point lead on Sergio Perez. They consolidated their constructors lead, of course. Charles Leclerc leads, as Josh mentioned, Carlos Sainz by 11. Russell's first non-top 5 of the year means that he's now 27 points behind Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton, getting another podium, gets himself within 18 points of his teammate. So that's where that's at. The battle after that is kind of a little more interesting. You have Norris, Bottas, and the 2 Renault drivers. Kevin Magnussen, Pierre Gasly, Sebastian Vettel, and Ricciardo are all very close together with Yuki Tsunoda. And then you have the rest of the guys. Nicholas Latifi, who actually had a good race, good weekend. Probably the best weekend he's ever had in his career outside of Hungary last year. Qualified in the top 10, ran up in the top 10. The caution, that full safety car, screwed him in that spot. Fell outside of that. Going into the constructors, 35 and 63 points. Red Bull leads Ferrari by. And then they're up 61 on Mercedes. And then there's a huge gap. Alpine and McLaren, there's a 6-point gap between those two. Alfa Romeo's in their own little world. AlphaTauri, Haas, and Aston Martin are only separated by 9 points. So something to look at in regards to those teams. Alfa Romeo, if they can have a little better reliability, they could get themselves in the mix there with Alpine and McLaren. But see what happens with that. Let's move to Cup. Tyler Reddick. And let's move to, I guess, NASCAR. Tyler Reddick gets his first career win in the Cup Series. Yet another Brad Keselowski Racing alum gets a win. 4 out of the 5 guys that have won their first race this year drove for Brad Keselowski Racing. So that's pretty cool. He may not be known as the most intelligent guy in regards to some of his takes he has on social media, but by God, he knows how to find talent. Because he had Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and now and Tyler Reddick all on his team at some point during their existence. I think Brad is hoping he can do the same thing with RFK. It hasn't really worked out so well on his end. Chris Buescher seems to be taking a step forward with his progression here in recent weeks, especially with their road course situation. But getting into wow, oh, look at that. Oh, they got interesting. We'll talk about that in a few minutes time. Got some little news there. The race results of the Quick Trip 250 presented by Jockey Made in America. Daniel Suarez had the Murica paint scheme, which must have thrown the maggots off for sure. Tyler Reddick wins his first career Cup Series race, leads 16 laps. William Clyde Elliott II led the most laps, 36, led 3 times. Didn't get any playoff points, but he was finishing inside of the top 10 even after pitting. Larson started 3rd, finished 3rd, and essentially that's what he was most of the day. Reddick was trying to pass him before they all pitted in the first stage. Chastain and Suarez make it. Chevys in the top 5. The 2 Trackhouse cars didn't have the greatest of qualifyings, but were able to get up there in the race. Chris Buescher finished 6th. Austin Cindric finished 7th. Michael McDowell finished 8th. AJ Allmendinger started 21st, finished 9th. And Kevin Harvick rounds out your top 10. Brian Blaney won stage 2. Chase Briscoe won stage 1. And I guess we'll go with this first. We'll talk about Reddick going and being one of the only people that I think made a pass on the racetrack on Sunday at Road America. Clyde said it after qualifying that passing was going to be at a premium. It was going to be very hard. And when you have a rocket ship like Clyde had on Sunday for a good part of that race, I can see why. But there was really only a few cars. I don't know what you thought, and you can tell me, but I thought the 8 car had pace, the 2 car had pace, and I'm forgetting one other one off the top, but I know the 8 and the 2, there was one other car that kind of stood out to me that I thought was like, okay, if you give them track position or you give them, okay, fine. It's probably those 2 guys. I think I was thinking there was a third one, but I guess I was wrong on that. I think it was really maybe the 34 to 17. I don't know. The 5 was kind of there, but not to the same level. But the 8 car and the 2 car didn't have as much track position theoretically, but they were up there in the top 10, so it's kind of hard to say that. But they were fast. And if they had pit strategies or whatever, things worked a certain way, I think those cars are going to get there. Well, the 8 got there. The 2 had one of his best runs he's had in a while. This race has changed the point situation up exponentially because you had 2 guys that sacrificed probably a better finish to win a stage to get the playoff point. Briscoe didn't have the same pace he had on Saturday in practice and in qualifying. He was the fastest car, should have won the pole, gave it away. And then in the race, tried to pass Clyde on lap 1 and gave up. And then started falling back after about 8 laps, which means he had a short run car. Then once he got stuck in traffic, it was just a clusterfuck. He almost got passed by Cole Custer. That tells you all you need to know about how bad things went for that team after having that position, giving away another opportunity to win, possibly get a good top 5 finish, whatever. They sacrificed a finish to get the playoff point to move themselves up the playoff ladder. Since now there's 13 winners so far in 18 races, Josh, and it's unprecedented in our time. You know, I don't really. I know years and years ago there was a lot of winners. I think 2002, but that was pre-playoff format or whatever. But to have 5 first-time winners, to have every 3 first-time winners on all on road courses. The guy who's literally legitimately a road course ringer, he wins on a super speedway, which isn't his forte, and goes and wins the Daytona 500 because Blaney choked. But you know, the fact is this next gen car has opened things up, you know, in so many ways. And the RCR was the team that was the first team that made the prototype. They made the prototype. And you have their main talent, their lead dog, goes and gets that W, finally gets over the hump, gets rid of that monkey on his back. And I'm sure the party's still going on, even though they have to get ready for Atlanta this weekend, because Tyler Reddick is one of the best talents in this sport. And now he has a W to go with that.
Yeah, Phil, I mean, it was definitely a great race on Sunday. I mean, it was hard to pass for sure, but I think it was also just show of who had the best car at the end. And, you know, at first it looked like Chase Elliott, you know, throughout the race, of course, led the most of the race. But then the last stint, Tyler Reddick was able to kind of keep up with him and throughout the beginning to the end of the last stage, and he was able to keep up with him and put the pressure on him. And then Chase Elliott made a mistake and overdrove one corner, and Tyler Reddick was able to get by him. And then from there, it was a challenge if Chase Elliott could be able to pass back Tyler Reddick, but he wasn't able to do that. And Tyler Reddick had the best car at the end, and he drove away from Chase Elliott there. So it was a good victory for Tyler Reddick, and yeah, it shakes up the Cup Series standings in terms of the playoff field, because now we only have 3 guys left who haven't won, and they're all 3 drivers who are capable of winning in this series. And Ryan Blaney is definitely one of those drivers who can win a race. Surprisingly, has not won yet. Martin Truex, another driver who's had some good runs here throughout the season, hasn't won yet. Christopher Bell, not quite as good as either is two, but definitely can win on these racetracks. So he's definitely good at places like New Hampshire, some of the flat tracks. So he's proven himself in the Xfinity Series there. So definitely a chance for any of those 3 drivers to possibly win. And we've gotten into the part of the season in NASCAR where it gets very volatile in terms of who wins and whatnot, because you have a lot of different racetracks coming up. You have the Atlanta Speedway now, which is the super speedway, so that's definitely up for grabs for anybody. So a guy like Bubba Wallace, who did switch crews, they announced that today with Christopher Bell, could possibly win coming up at Atlanta. You have 2 more road courses in Watkins Glen, Indianapolis road course, Daytona, another super speedway, and certainly going to be something like Atlanta, like that. You have Michigan, which could come down to fuel mileage, just like a lot of history at that racetrack, where races went down to fuel mileage, and the leader ended up running out of gas and got a surprise winner. So you have that, and then you also have short track racing. You have Bristol still on the schedule, or not Bristol, but Richmond still on the schedule. Just pulled the Bill Weber there, but you still have that. So there's definitely like a lot of things that could happen still in the summer, and there's definitely a lot of volatility that could still happen. So we've seen this before in the series where we have surprise winners throughout the summer. I think last year we kind of saw that a little bit. I think also with 2016. We had, and Pocono's another one, with Chris Buescher, 2016, he won Pocono in the rain, or in the lightning, or whatever it was, and was able to steal his way in,
fog.
Be able to get his way into the field that way. So there's still a possibility that we end up having somebody that's not even in the top 16 come up with a win during this stretch. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But Sunday was a great, weekend of racing, really a great display of racing, I think, at Road America. A lot of people talking about with the next-gen car versus the old car. The old car didn't really, run that well on road courses. It's not meant for road course racing, so it should be a lot more entertaining to watch, because these cars are now designed for road course racing, designed to race better. It's a lot more stable, I guess, and so maybe it doesn't look as good, but I feel like if you're able to actually run on road courses, you can. It's going to bring a lot more road racing style, I think, to the Cup Series when they're on these type of racetracks, because now you can actually drive it like the way it's meant to be, and now you have to really play the long game with road racing. I think before you could really count on making mistakes, and I think you still have to, but you really have to be on your toes and put a lot of pressure on the guy in front of you to make a pass, and you just have to be able to set up the move throughout a stint. And I think, you're able to see that with Tyler Reddick versus Chase Elliott there at the end. And that was a really good example of, waiting to make the right move at the right time. Whereas maybe with the old car, you could kind of like throw it into a corner, kind of beat it around a little bit, especially at road courses, and maybe you would have seen a lot of entertaining racing between the two. But I feel like I like this kind of flavor better than what we had before. So it's going to be interesting to see if NASCAR decides to bring Road America back in 2023, because obviously there's rumors that we might see this racetrack get replaced by Chicago street course, which I guess the idea of having a street race in NASCAR in a major city is pretty interesting. But at the same time, Road America is a great racetrack, great road course. We've seen a lot of great racing in the Xfinity series and in the series, the 2 years that it's been on the schedule in Cup, plus a lot of history in the open wheel series with IndyCar and Champ Car. So I would hate to see this track leave the schedule. And plus, it matters to NASCAR. They have great attendance as well, and the fans seem to pack the stands very well. I don't have the numbers or know what the numbers are, but from what you're able to gather on social media and other places, it seems like that Road America definitely has a good turnout for crowds, compared to what other racetracks might have, and definitely at least the fans come out for this race. So would be a shame to see this one come off the schedule, because I feel like it can be a staple for the Cup Series in terms of road course racing.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, because people show up. 2 years we've had some of the best crowds. The racing may have not been the best, to be completely honest about that, but the fact of the matter is, Road America's historic. It's one of the greatest racing circuits we have in this country. The fact that the two biggest racing entities in this country that are circuit racing race here is huge. Losing this race to go and run a street course race when you have multiple races at other places that don't really need two races. They've already taken away 2 races from Dover and 2 races from Pocono and 2 races from Michigan. So you can take away, and New Hampshire. You could take away a second race from one of these other shitholes, whether it's Phoenix, whether it's, Kansas, Texas, that's where there are places you could take away a race. Road America, and it's not a thing, we need to keep Road America on, because at the end of the day, to me, stock cars are not meant for Road America. You need to have something that has a little bit more grunt and a little bit more downforce, like a Trans Am car, or you need to have a car that's more like a sedan series, spec sedan type series, like, Michelin Pilot Challenge kind of thing. NASCAR doesn't work there. NASCAR doesn't know what local yellows are. That's part of it. The fact is, they got bailed out because the only cautions they had were the stage cautions. If they didn't have stage breaks, that race would have ran green the whole entire way, which would have been insane, honestly. And if that had happened, then Chase Elliott might have lapped half the field. So maybe, I guess we should be happy they had stage breaks in this race, because it would have been a runaway. Or who knows what the hell it would have been. At least it would have been organic instead of what they do on road courses. There's no reason to have stage breaks on road courses. It messes with the flow of the race. And because of how long it takes NASCAR to do cautions, it fucks things up. But in the sense of Tyler Reddick getting that win, putting himself smack dab right into the middle of the playoff situation, his spot in terms of overall points, he's ninth in points. If you take playoff points into play, you put playoff points into it, there's 4 guys or 5 guys, 2, 3, 4, 5 that have double digit playoff points. And those are all the guys, I think, that have 2 wins. Yeah, those are all the 2-win drivers. So Elliott, Chastain, Logano, Byron, and Hamlin. Byron and Elliott have the most stage points with Chastain. And then you have Logano and Hamlin, who's 20th in points, who's the lowest driver right now in points amongst the drivers that are in. He's behind guys like Suarez, and there's a really good battle, honestly. If you take, there's only 21 points between Tyler Reddick and Daniel Suarez, and all 5 of those guys, Reddick, Cindric, Busch, Kurt Busch, Chase Briscoe, Suarez, are all in the playoff at the moment. As it stands right now, Kevin Harvick, who's 11th in points overall, is out of the playoffs along with Eric Almirola. Christopher Bell, who's 8th in points, is in. So that's something to look at. Christopher Bell's 20 points ahead of Kevin Harvick right now. Outside of that, it really is, you need to win. Honestly, I think that I honestly think the way things are going right now, you brought up all those racetracks that are coming up, some of the wild cards, including this weekend, it really 16 winners can happen, and which would validate their format. If we had 12 winners, then that whole entire battle I just brought up, the battle between Reddick, Cindric, Kurt Busch, Briscoe, and Suarez, would be its own little mini battle, talking about going and trying to stay in the top 12, let's say, or whatever, however that would work. Because right now, there's 13 winners and there's 12 drivers. Let's just say that there was 12. Chase Briscoe would only be 2 points ahead of Daniel Suarez. So then you have Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex, and Christopher Bell, who are all ahead, and Kevin Harvick or whatever. If any of them win, then you're kicking out one of those guys, and then you need to win another race. I think that would be more intriguing than, you just win a race and you might have a chance. But, that's how NASCAR wants to do things. You need to have 16 drivers in the playoff. But I think that would be even more intriguing in its own right. You do 8 in trucks, 10 in XFinity, and 12 in Cup. And I think that would be a proper playoff. Other playoff formats, NFL and MLB are expanding out. So they're already joining what NASCAR does. I think the golf PGA is actually going the other way, in large part because of LIV. But, something for another day, I guess. The playoff discussion probably can have Joe or some of our other former guests that we've had on here. We'll bring up the Henry 180, which saw Keebler Gibbs go and get the win. He led 5 laps. He passed the defending Cup Series champion Kyle Larson to get the victory, and big win for him, 3rd win of the year for him. Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson for Hendrick Motorsports, wins both stages, and goes and still finishes 2nd. Josh Berry finishes 3rd. Austin Hill 4th. Buckshot Jones 5th. AJ Allmendinger from dead last finishes 6th. Riley Herbst 7th. Noah Gragson, who we'll talk about in a moment, in 8th. Jeremy Clements 9th. Brian Sieg in 10th. Honorable mention to Preston Pardis, who finished 11th. Let's see, I'm trying to see who else kind of had stage points. Jeremy Clements had a good day. There's some people who got stage points in one stage. Cole Custer got stage points in both stages and then got involved in the big wreck, I believe, or some wreck. He was driving the 07 car, so he drove it better than Joe Graff would. Joe Graff ended up starting parking with brake issues. So did Ty Dillon, driving for JD Motorsports. Will Rogers starting parked as well. So, I guess it's hard to say that you start and park after you run 13 or 17 laps, but really, that's what it is. So the Xfinity Series, Ty Gibbs, Keebler Gibbs goes and gets another victory to go and put himself, give himself a nice little cushion in regards to playoff points. Right now, he's only 9 points behind AJ Allmendinger overall, and he has an 11-point gap at the moment on playoff points with his 4th win of the year. I thought it was third, 4th win of the year. The top 5, it's very top heavy the way the points are right now. Top 4 are separated by 39 points. Top 5 separated by 74. After that, once you get past that, it's kind of pretty mediocre. Landon Castle fell out of the race, and he's still 72 points ahead of Anthony Alfredo, who fell out of the race, got involved in the wreck. Moffitt got involved in the wreck. Brandon Brown got destroyed. Keebler goes and the talk about him going to Cup. They basically announced that he wasn't going to Cup next year a few months ago. And he kind of went into a cold streak. And then they announced Martin Truex is coming back and gets out of hibernation and goes and beats Kyle Larson, of all fucking people. Honest to God, the fact he passed him clean shocked me. I didn't expect him to pass Kyle Larson clean, but he did it. And now, he reinserts himself as a de facto title favorite because he's won more than anybody else so far this year. 4 races so far in 16. He's won 9 times or 8 times or 9 times in his career, in his very short career, no less. Guy is likely going to be in a Gibbs car in 2024. Now, which one that is, likely the 19 car, but or the 20. But either way, the guy is setting himself up for a pretty good future, Josh. And doing what he did on Saturday would accelerate that process forward and make it look good for instead of it just being nepotism.
Yeah, I mean, I think this race here with Ty Gibbs winning is a very clutch victory for Ty Gibbs. He was able to go out and steal the win really from Kyle Larson. I think this was probably a race that Kyle Larson should have won. I think he led throughout the entire event, led 31 laps, and had a great move that looked like would be the move for the win on the next to last restart, making a 3-wide move, taking the lead in turn 1 on new tires compared to what the leaders had who didn't pit at that time. And it was looking like it was his race, and then Cole Custer goes and crashes out of the race, loses the brakes, and ends up stalled in turn 5. So throw the L out again, and this time around, Ty Gibbs is able to keep up with him throughout the entire first lap, and was able to make the pass on Kyle Larson, and he was able to do it cleanly. I mean, there's times when it looked like he would try to get up to the bumper and try to pass him, but waited for the right opportunity for Larson to slip up. Larson had an issue coming off the final corner on the next to last lap. He slid, didn't make the apex right, and it was really loose off the corner, didn't have the right line, and Ty Gibbs was able to go out and pass him for the lead in the next corner. So it was a really interesting way to end the race, and we kind of seen that from Kyle Larson before, where sometimes he has races where he's in the lead, and then the car slips up or doesn't have quite the right handling, and the race goes away from him, and loses the lead at the very end. We saw this last year in the Cup Series at Atlanta versus Ryan Blaney, dealing with the loose car towards the end, and kind of the same deal here. Just couldn't have the right corner entry for Larson there, and so loses the lead to Ty Gibbs, and Ty's able to take it away and adds 4th victory for the year. So clearly the best guy in the Xfinity series right now, and I think for the rest of the series, the rest of the competitors, they got to be able to stack up wins against him, because he's going to have a big advantage when it comes to the playoff standings. Once they reseed, obviously has the most playoff points right now, so it's going to be a challenge for the rest of the field to be able to go out and match the amount of playoff points that Ty Gibbs has currently right now. So we'll see how it goes. I think AJ Allmendinger probably has got to find a way to get more speed. Currently, he's still the points leader overall, but still, I think the momentum sliding away from him in terms of keeping the points lead. Looks like it's probably going to trend towards Ty Gibbs as we move on later here into the season before the playoffs. So we'll see what happens, but definitely a interesting development here with the playoff seeding, like you said, with top heavy series right now. So we'll see what happens. And I think you mentioned the big wreck with Gragson and with Sage Karam. It's definitely a big no there. I mean, people are talking about Sage ran him off the road 3 times, and Sage has been an aggressive driver in the past. We've seen him in IndyCar. You remember, go back to 2015 with his rookie year there at Chip Ganassi, and remember at Iowa where he was racing pretty hard with Ed Carpenter. Ed Carpenter gave him the finger at 200 miles an hour going down the straight at Iowa. It's one of my favorite memories in recent years of IndyCar racing. But he's been there where he's kind of that aggressive guy, and maybe people didn't really like him, but he's also had a lot of pretty down moments, of course, with the incident that ended up leading to Justin Wilson's death and everything. So all of that stuff has history, and with Sage Karam, so he's not really a completely aggressive driver is what I'm trying to say. And I think what Noah Gragson did was pretty uncalled for there, and you never right hook a guy down the straightaway or left hook a guy. In this case, that's not something you do down a straight, and you did that and cost a lot of people their race, cost Brandon Brown maybe the family jewels for the day or whatever. Of course, that's a painful moment there, getting out of the car and being able to do that. So we'll see. I mean, I think NASCAR, they didn't do anything for whatever reason, and I guess because he's Noah Gragson or whatever. But although apparently they did talk to him in the hauler after the race or sometime this week, and apparently he didn't take it well. So we'll see what that means going forward. So big no from Gragson there, and definitely Sage Karam. He spoke the truth in his post-race interview there, or post-rec interview there on Saturday. So liked what he had to say. I mean, he was fairly honest and calm and measured in his assessment of Noah Gragson. Didn't use any personal tactics or whatever. He just flat out told the truth about how he felt. So really liked that analysis from Sage Karam. That's a great way to describe everything that his experience racing against Noah Gragson in that event, and pretty much sums up, I think, how the rest of the garage probably feels about Noah Gragson. So, we'll see if he's got it coming here later in the year.
Yeah, his actions and the fact that there hasn't been real, comments, or there wasn't he didn't get parked. Tony got parked for less. Kurt Busch has been parked for less. Kyle Busch went and right-reared Ron Hornaday while he was in a battle for a Truck Series championship, and then he tried to end himself, but because he's Kyle Busch, he got away with it. There are people. Kevin Harvick went and turned Coy Gibbs and then got suspended. What Noah Gragson does on a regular basis, and Ty Gibbs to an extent as well, what some of these guys do is not only dangerous, it's borderline, like you're doing shit that could be leveled up pretty big. The guy's an asshole. He's a cocksucker. His dad's a murderer. He thinks he's God's gift to racing, just like Max Verstappen. He's got this ego on him. He's a freaking what are the Republic? One of their talking points? You're a groomer. He's a groomer. He's into freaking little girls and shit like that. And he's like retarded. I mean, he literally, it's bad to use that word. The guy is retarded. If the guy couldn't drive a goddamn race car, he'd be working. He would need a job coach, and I can say that since I am one. He would need a job coach to go and get him a job to go and work at the freaking Tilt-A-World or whatever, or work at a Walmart, Wally World, or a freaking supermarket or whatever. That's what he is. The guy's a fucking dumbass, and his stupid fans, the same people who go and apologize for Larson, same people who apologize for Max Verstappen. They apologize. Oh, he's not daddy's money anymore. He doesn't use his dad's sponsor. Well, how the hell do you think the guy got all those sponsors? Because he's been there for 100 years. You look at every driver that's been in that 9 car. They didn't spend more than 2 years in that freaking car. You know why? Because they won a fucking championship. What the hell's Noah Gragson done? He's been in that car. He's wrecked a lot of shit. Now he just sits around. I win a race here and there. I'm so great. I got a mullet. I'll walk around with my uniform down, and I'll show my bare chest because I want to go and do it for Republican congressmen and senators because that's what they're into. And it's like you're an arrogant prick. You drive like an asshole. Every time you jump in a cup car, you wreck. And if you don't wreck, something always happens. You're fucking putz. And you drive like a dick, and you destroyed. I mean, whatever. Let's go for all the idiot sticks that love that saying. You destroyed Brandon Brown's race car, and he had to probably go to the hospital, whatever. You destroyed other race cars of other maggot moron type people, too. You're destroying race cars of people who don't have the equipment, the money, and support that Junior Motorsports does. Because you just decided you had to have you had to have roid rage like Carl Edwards and you wreck Sage Karam. And then he wants to be big Billy Bad Butt and go and say, well, he started it, so I ended it. You, Max Verstappen, turn one and didn't even give him a chance to go and make the corner. So he goes and gets underneath you. He does an over-under because Sage Karam knows how to drive a goddamn race car. And he's learning how to drive a stock car, too. He gave Alpha Prime one of the best runs they've had all year. Alpha Prime has struggled most of this year. Those two cars were running really, really well. And in one fell swoop, he destroyed both of them. It's like, dude, the Dale Jr. can't say anything. He's fundamentally gotten to the point where he will not say a word about Noah Gragson. That's how bad it is. Because not only because of his conflicts of interest with TV, the conflicts of interest knowing that the guy's an asshole, but he can't say anything on his podcast or whatever. Like, he has so many conflicts of interest, he cannot handle this. And Kelly can't do anything about it. Davis's stupid ass can't do anything about it. There's nothing. It's like bat out of hell. It's like the truck series with all the idiots that drive in there, all the daddy's money douchebags like Gagson that have a similar amount of talent. They run over everybody. My hope is that once we get to the playoffs, if he isn't getting sent every week into the wall, that somebody just punches him right in the face at Bristol. Just kick him in the balls, power bomb him, something. I don't care. Somebody does a Ric Flair run in and hits him with a chair. Anything. I don't care. Baseball bat him right into the midsection, hit him in the nuts. It doesn't really matter. The guy needs to get humbled. It's the same thing with Ty Gibbs. Even though he's like 4 foot tall, he's like Eric the Midget, except his grandfather is a freaking 3-time Super Bowl winning head coach. Like Sam Mayer kind of drives the same way, but he's a putz and his dad was a shitty IndyCar racer or IRL racer. There's all these guys that suck or do sucky things. At some point, somebody's going to have to hit you. Tony Stewart got his ass kicked. All these guys got their ass kicked. At some point, these guys have to get their ass kicked. Noah Gragson has not gotten his ass kicked by somebody because he's a freaking mongoloid. He's a January 6er. So the point is, he'll go out there, I'm tough, I'll go murder other people, I'll do all this shit. Oh, my daddy's some great guy, I got a lot of money. Like, if this motherfucker would work at a freaking Bob's Big Boy if he wasn't a fucking if his dad didn't have all this money and he wasn't a race car driver. He'd be stocking shelves somewhere. It's the same thing as Kyle Larson, that dumb motherfucker. If he didn't know how to drive a race car to the level of like Steve Kinzer, he'd be working the freaking Elk Grove, California Tilt-A-Whirl at their county fair because he's a moron too. I'm so sick and tired of Noah Gragson. It pisses Noah Gragson, just his stupid fucking face and his obnoxious personality, acting like he deserves to be there and run over people. Like, somebody just needs to wall him every week. I don't care what team it is.
Kenseth and Logano.
Yeah, just tell Carlong, take one of your cellar dwellers or tell JD Motorsports. Put take that dumbass Jesse Iwuji, that fucking loser, if he's in the car, and just tell him to go and hook him. The way he hooked Ty Gibbs at Portland, go and hook him. That would be a benefit to society,
Just like Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer 2012 at Phoenix.
Yeah, just do it. And then go and call a wrestler and call some sort of wrestler and go and powerbomb the son of a bitch through a flaming table. That's because it is WWE. That's all this bullshit. So at the end of the day, you know what? Let's go and set up some tables, set up some chairs, get Rutledge to go and announce it, get all hard off of it, and go and get Noah Gragson to piss somebody off, put him through a fucking flaming table, and leave him there like a little bitch. Fuck that cocksucker. I'm sick of him. I'm so sick and tired of his bullshit. Like he's some big time deal. He's a fucking loser. He's a waste of a seat. He's going to waste a seat in Cup if he gets the seat that we're thinking he's going to get next year. But yeah, we're probably going to end up having to do a second show the way this is going. Because we've only gotten to, I don't know how long. You said 8:50, right? But, yeah, we started this, 8:40. So We're an hour and 20. All right, let's get in an IndyCar. Scott McLaughlin gets his third win of 2022 at Mid-Ohio. Big deal for him. It's been a rough. He won the first race of the year at St. Petersburg. I said third win of the year, second win of the year. My fault. I'm thinking he won the race at Texas. He won the pole and led and lost it on the last lap. Scott McLaughlin won his second race of 2022, ninth race out of 17 this year. The Honda Grand Prix of Mid-Ohio, Honda Indy 200, sees him lead 45 laps. Pato O'Ward led early and then had mechanical problems, which essentially sent him back after qualifying on pole. Would have been a huge win for Pato O'Ward to go and get that victory. In regards to the points, his teammate Felix Rosenqvist fell out even further back than that. Kyle Kirkwood had mechanical and crash issues after starting in the top 10. Cal Milot started in the top 10 out of mechanical issues. So 3 Chevys fell out within 6 laps, including Pato O'Ward, which, in his battle for the points, likely would have gained a huge amount of points, gotten himself right in the mix with Ericsson, Power, Newgarden. Instead, he's 65 points back in 5th, 2 points ahead of McLaughlin, or 2 points ahead of Dixon and 4 points ahead of Scott McLaughlin, who wins his second race of the year, only his third podium. First 2 races, so it's first podium since the Texas race. It's been baptism by fire for Scott McLaughlin. Rough year last year, Josh, learning after being a multiple-time Supercars champion. This year, first 2 races were great. Ever since then, it's been bad. Qualified well on Saturday to get to second and benefited from Pato O'Ward's misfortune to add to his total leading total of laps led. And now he's theoretically still in this points race. They always say if you're inside of 100 points, you're in it. There's only 8 drivers that can say that at the moment in the point standings, but he's in a little battle within Dixon and Rossi, and then you got the rest of the guys over there. All the drivers outside of Colton Herta, of course, who's won the first Indy road course race. He's in 10th. He's 109 points out. We're going to get into Andretti Autosport here shortly, but Josh, McLaughlin goes and gets the win over Alex Palou and Will Power, his team, McLaughlin's teammate, who came back from 21st. Rinus VeeKay, who's big in free agency at the moment, finishes 4th. Scott Dixon finishes 5th at one of his best racetracks. Marcus Ericsson, the points leader, finishes 6th, ahead of Newgarden, Elio Castro-Neves. David Malukas started 8th, finished 9th. Simon Pagenaud started 6th, finished 10th. So that brings up your top 10. The Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan cars start bringing up the second 10 there. But yeah, I mean, McLaughlin goes and kind of reinserts himself back into this points battle, gives himself a chance to possibly make something happen in this championship if he can get more momentum going into Toronto and some of the other races that'll be coming up here. The Iowa double that'll be coming up as well. Iowa double. Once they start the Toronto deal, they're going to be racing every week. They're going to run 2 races at Iowa, run Toronto, then going to run 2 races at Iowa, the Indianapolis, the Indy GP Part 2, and then the Nashville Street Course before there's a gap for the 2 weeks before Gateway, and then a couple weeks before Portland and Laguna Seca to end the season. So huge time to go and show up and get that victory, Josh, by Scott McLaughlin and the Penske team. to go and emphasize 3 out of the top 7 are all Penske cars. They're going to stay with 3 cars next year because it seems like things have went a little better for them. And they also have the Porsche program, so they're going to have to commit a lot of resources to that. But McLaughlin gets the win at the expense of Pato O'Ward. Chevys get both sides of it. You get the good and the bad for Chevrolet at Mid-Ohio. At Honda's house, Chevrolet goes and gets the win.
Yeah, I mean, for Scott McLaughlin, it's been a up and down season. Started out high with winning at St. Petersburg, and led most of Texas, and came up short to his teammate Joseph Newgarden. And since then, it's been kind of a downward trend for Scott McLaughlin. The Long Beach Grand Prix after that was kind of a disappointment, and then kind of after that it hasn't really shown too much in the results category, but finally has a good race here at Mid-Ohio. Qualified second, led 45 laps, and won the race pretty easily. I think the only thing standing between him and victory was Pato O'Ward, who of course had engine failure. Of course, they had reliability issues in the McLaren camp. Him and Felix Rosenquist both having engine issues at the beginning of the race. So I think if it weren't for that, probably would have been a tougher challenge there for Scott McLaughlin. But goes out and wins this race, and pretty much I think he's only gone up to 7th in the championship right now. So it's still a long way to go, 69 points out of the lead, but it does, put him back into the mix, as far as championship contention. I think Scott Dixon and him are, kind of in that category of, and Alex Rossi, kind of in that category of guys who can still have a shot at the championship, theoretically, mathematically speaking, whatever you want to call it. So I definitely think that, they're going to be guys that we could talk about later in the year if they can get on a consistency streak and finish in the podium or near the podium level. So we'll have to see how that plays out as we progress here into the summer and the final stretch of the year for the IndyCar series. I think, for other drivers in this field, Will Power finished in 3rd, started off in the race, spun out on the first lap and managed to, recover and get going. But from there, it was going to be a challenge to, get back up into the top 10, back into the podium. And he was able to do that. And we haven't really seen this type of racing from Will Power in a long time. And could be something later in the year, especially him being in 2nd place right now to Marcus Ericsson. So look out, later in the year. Will Power kind of going on a little bit of a under the radar type of run here, especially with him hasn't won a race, or well, he has won one race this year, of course, but hasn't really had a flashy season like Joseph Newgarden or somebody like Marcus Ericsson. So we'll see what happens later in the year if Will Power is able to maybe get another win or two, and I think that would really shake things up in the championship here going forward. And then I think another guy to talk about is Rinus VeeKay. Of course, went from 11th to 4th there and had a good run in this race. Had a 2-for-1 special pass late in the going. One of the highlights that IndyCar is showing right now on social media. I think NBC is also displaying that one. So really good moves there for Rinus VeeKay. Even guys like Jimmy Johnson, actually, I think this is probably his best finish on a road course on the lead lap so far. So, of course, had to go through some attrition, of course, with McLaren, both, all the AJ Foyt racing basically out of it. So some cars that maybe would have normally finished in front of him didn't finish or ran behind him the whole way. So opportunity there for Jimmy to capitalize, and he was able to get a P16 there. I think the other aspect of this race we had to talk about is Andretti Autosport, of course. Like we said earlier in the show, they're seemingly falling apart at the seams. Seems like with Alexander Rossi and Romain Grosjean got into it in the keyhole in late in the going at Mid-Ohio, and happened on basically 2 consecutive laps, and then eventually led to a yellow with Romain Grosjean getting run off the road and not being able to refire his car there. So it's a little bit of testy waters here for Andretti. I'm sure they're probably going to have a come to Jesus meeting this week with all the team, because it wasn't just him. Colton Herta also got into it as well. So and with Grosjean, and then Rossi got into it with Devlin DeFrancesco. So it's troubling times, I guess, right now for Andretti, and we'll see if they're able to kind of calm the peace right now, and calm everybody down and regroup for the next race here in Toronto in 2 weeks. And it's definitely an owner's worst nightmare when your 2 team cars get into it, and then it's a really bad day when everybody gets into it with everybody. So not really good for Andretti right now, but sure, they'll recover, and hopefully there's not too much tension, because I think especially for Alexander Rossi, leaving the team and going to McLaren, don't really want to leave it with bridges burned, of course, and you want to maintain those relationships, not only professionally but also personally. So, want to be able to leave on a good note in terms of respect with the team. So, definitely a bad time for Andretti, but it was a very entertaining race throughout. Thought maybe Alex Palou could have gotten up there to Scott McLaughlin, but Scott was able to defend his position. I think he was able to use the push to pass to defend, and then Palou just didn't have quite the pace that he needed at the end, and plus I think he burned up his tires and he used up too much of his push to pass there at the end, so wasn't quite able to get up alongside of Scott McLaughlin there, but still able to press him there for the win at the very end of the race. So great racing throughout. It was a great IndyCar race as usual for this series, and definitely a lot of action that happened throughout the field.
Yeah, I mean the whole argy-bargy, as the great Calvin Fish would say, between Andretti Autosport. I mean, Colton Herta ran off the track. Alexander Rossi and Romain Grosjean hit everything but the lottery. It was not a good look. Michael Andretti was raging so much he called the team meeting, and they interviewed Rossi, but they couldn't interview Grosjean because Grosjean walked off in a rage quit.
He didn't walk off, but he was about to say something, and then the PR girl pulled him away.
PR person, yeah, because I'll tell you what, Andretti Autosport's got some problems. You got Colton Herta, who they're already anointing him. He's going to Formula One, even though Andretti Autosport, they don't want Andretti Autosport in Formula One. And when you consider what Andretti Autosport's been doing in recent years and motorsports, you'd probably say it's probably not the best idea to be going to Formula One. The fact is their team is kind of taking a downturn. They don't have a veteran presence after Rossi leaves, in a sense. I mean, Colton would essentially be that veteran guy, but he's younger than all the other guys. Kyle Kirkwood's coming in to take over the 27 car. DeFrancesco's a waste of a seat. And then you have Grosjean, who is theoretically the most popular driver, but is definitely not popular amongst the drivers because of his tactics, which, I mean, to be fair, are the similar tactics he had in Formula One and pissed off a lot of people there too. Seeing all that going on in that race was amazing. I'm like, wow, these guys are just running each other off the track, and it's bad luck. And Michael Andretti, it's not something you need to handle that off the track. And by the time we get to Toronto next week, and we'll preview it on episode 123, I'm sure that they'll be all singing Kumbaya on the whole bit. But it's not a good look for Andretti Autosport at the moment. I do agree with Josh was talking about in regards to Palou. Palou's quietly there. Penske guys, you have the Newgarden, who's been the best driver generally through the entire season, but there hasn't been one driver I can't say that. There hasn't been one driver that's been good through the entire season. There's been moments for certain people. Ericsson wins Indy and has kind of carried that momentum. Newgarden's won more races than anybody. Power has been great in qualifying for a good part of the season, but recently hasn't been. And he shows why, he's one of the better drivers there's ever been in IndyCar. But Palou is just quietly sneaking in there. He's doing, like Alex Palou, honestly, like you think about how, Scott Dixon's the Iceman, and he won all those championships, and he's got Terry Labonte vibes, Scott Dixon. But I see Terry Labonte vibes with Alex Palou. The way he's just going and getting those podium finishes, getting those points. There's Terry Labonte vibes going on with Alex Palou here. Maybe we have to make the comparison to Fred Alonso or whoever, or some Spanish rider in motorcycles, or maybe we make the comparison to Carlos Sainz. I don't know. There's something about Alex Palou, the way he's able to make the most out of a situation where if he can get that win, let's just say he goes and puts one together at Toronto and goes and gets that win in the Honda Grand Prix of Toronto, you're going to flip this championship on its lid. The defending series champions right back in it. One of his teammates is up there. Of course, Dixon's back there too. And then you have all three Penske guys there with Pat O'Ward. They're outnumbered, but I would say I would go and take the defending champion and his team over anybody else. Dario Franchitti proved that. Well, he won 3 of his 4 championships and won 2 of his 3 Indy 500s, and probably would have kept on winning championships in Indy 500s if he hadn't gotten seriously injured at Houston years ago. Let's go into the GSP roundup this week, starting with SRX. The Stafford Motor Speedway race saw Ryan Newman win his first race since Phoenix in 2017, I think, over Marco Andretti. Paul Tracy getting a top 3 finish in an SRX race, which is something. Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte were the top 5. Haley Deegan, who had the pole in the first heat race, finished 6th. Hunter Race 7th. Matt Hirschman was the all-star, finished 8th. Justin Marks making a guest appearance, finished 9th. Greg Biffle 10th. Austin Bill from Dawsonville 11th. And Michael Waltrip finished dead last. The points going into the next race see Ryan Newman in the points lead, thanks to Toby Christie, TobyChristie.com for this. So I was looking for this. Ryan Newman has an 11-point lead on Tony Stewart, 12-point lead on both Bobby Labonte and Marco Andretti. So a 4-driver race at the moment. To a lesser extent, Greg Biffle's still in at 26 points back in 5th. As we go to Nashville Fairgrounds this coming weekend, Tony Kanaan is ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay, Paul Tracy, and Michael Waltrip, who've ran 3 races while Tony Kanaan's only run 2. This is the one race he was going to miss. So Tony Kanaan is sort of in this battle too, to a lesser extent as well. Because he's run well. He's led 44 laps so far this year. I don't know what does INC mean. I don't know what the heck that is.
Incomplete, maybe?
Well, I mean, Marco has won. Greg Biffle has won. Ryan Hunter-Reay. Okay. Well, maybe it's... Paul Tracy is the most, so maybe it's the most times he hasn't finished. It's incomplete relative to number of heats and all that. So we'll see them at Nashville Fairgrounds this weekend. Last paved race they're going to have before they go to Peevely, Missouri and Sharon Speedway to end the 2022 season on the SRX series. And then we'll get into F2, F3, and W series this week or this past weekend. In F2, the big news, Logan Sargeant qualified on pole for the races at Silverstone. over Frederick Vesti and points leader Felipe Drogovic. Theo Pocher, Liam Lawson rounds out the top 5. But in race 1, Jack Doohan gets his first F2 win over Iwasa, Enzo Fittipaldi, Theo Pocher, and Felipe Drogovic. Round out your top 5. Logan Sargeant finishes 7th. Jehan Daruvula from 10th gets to 8th and gets the pole for race 2. I'm going to go through all that, wherever Liam was, all that. Then in race 2, Logan Sargeant gets his first career F2 victory. First win for an American, as I said, in this category since Alexander Rossi in 2015. Wins over Theo Pocher, Liam Lawson, Drogovic, Frederick Vesti was your top 5. Daruvula finishes 7th. The standings going into this weekend's race, Pocher is 42 points back in 2nd from Felipe Drogovic. And Logan Sargeant takes over 3rd place in points, 8 points ahead of Jehan Daruvula. Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, Marcus Armstrong, Yuri Vips are all tied on the same amount of points with 59. Lawson and Armstrong have scored in every round this year. Vips has missed one round or didn't score in one round. Jack Doohan hasn't scored in 2 rounds. So interesting battle. From 5th through 11th is only separated by 5 points. So that's something that we have to look at, or people have to look at, between those drivers. Lawson, Doohan, Armstrong, Vips, who's been fired, of course. So he got rehired or whatever, but his situation ain't stable. Enzo Fittipaldi, Dennis Hauger, Frederick Vesti, making up the rest of that deal there. In Formula 3, the results going into qualifying, Zach O'Sullivan, another Williams development driver, qualified on pole over Artur Leclerc and Zane Maloney. American Jack Crawford started 5th. Kalen Frederick 7th. Kushmini, the Indian driver, was 10th. Reese Ushijima was 12th, which will make a difference here in just a moment, since he ended up going and finishing 3rd in the first race, F3 race. Isaac Hadjar gets the win over Victor Martins and Ushijima. Miney 4th, Frederick 5th. Jack Crawford finished 10th. Hunter Yaney, another American, 16th. Juan Manuel Correa, 21st. And then there's other people there, whatever. I don't know who they are. In race 2, Artur Leclerc won over Zach O'Sullivan. Oliver Bierman finished 3rd. Caio Collet 4th. Isaac Hadjar 5th. Jack Crawford 6th. Martins, Edgar, Vidales, Ushijima 10th. Kalen Frederick finished 12th. The standings going into this weekend in Austria see Victor Martins up by 6 points over Artur Leclerc, 9 points over Isaac Hadjar, 15 points over Roman Stanek, and 17 over Jack Crawford. So something to see. Can Jack Crawford finally go and get a win, put himself up there, give himself a chance, because this points battle is still pretty close. Frederick is 11th. Correa is 13th. Miney's 14th. In regards to other guys, Yaney doesn't have any points. There's only 22 guys that have scored a point so far this year. There's been 36 drivers, so something to look at in regards to Formula 3 or F3. W Series, it's a broken record. Jamie Chadwick made some really fucked up comments this past week about, trans rights or trans people in sports, even though she drives for a trans person in sports and other things. She goes and gets the win by 19.5 seconds over Emma Kimmelainen. Abby Pulling rounds out the podium. Chloe Chambers finished 13th. Just trying to go through whatever there. The standings, she's got a perfect 100 points. So far, 49-point lead on Abby Pulling, 60-point lead on Emma Kimmelainen. Betske Visser and Alice Powell round out the top 5. Chloe Chambers has 7 points from the initial doubleheader at Miami, which has her tied for 12th in points with Sarah Moore. So we'll see if she can go and progress on that when they come back in Paul Ricard and Hungary in a few weeks' time for a back-to-back, trying to go and get themselves there before the break that they'll have in W Series until their race in Japan at Suzuka. Getting into IMSA racing here, the IMSA series ran at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Ron Fellows Raceway, Mosport Park. They ran last week the Chevy Grand Prix there in Mosport. Saw the 0-1 team of Chip Ganassi and Cadillac win at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Le Mans Prototype 3, that's not what I wanted to see. That was Colin Brown, that's not shocking. Race. Class. Oh, there you go. It should be that sports car, Chevy Sports Car Grand Prix. Session race is DPI. Renger van der Zande over. There you go. That's what I wanted. Renger van der Zande and Sebastian Bourdais over the pole-sitting Tom Blomqvist and Oliver Jarvis by 3.509 seconds. Cadillac over Acura. Pippo Durrani, Olivier Pla round out the podium in Wheel and Engineering Cadillac. All the cars finish on the lead lap. LMP3, Colin Brown, John Bennett finish 8 laps behind, but they win over Gabby Chavez, Jared Andretti, and the number 36, and then Garrett Grist, Ari Ballou, JR3 racing on number 30 round out the podium. The GT Pro category sees Matt Campbell and Matthew Jaminet for FAF Motorsports Porsche win over the Corvette of Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor, and Ross Gunn and Alex Ribero's Harder Racing Aston Martin. Though the GTD teammate Maxime Martin, Roman DeAngelis wins the GTD category over Philip Ellis, Russell Worden, Winward Racing Mercedes, and then Aiden Reed and Ryan Eversley in the Rick Ware Racing Acura there. So that was the result. The next race will be at Lime Rock Park here in a few weeks' time. Trying to go and bring that up. See, that'll be next week. We'll preview that on the GSP. For IMSA, we'll go to Formula E here. The results, there's news. The New York race might get moved. That'll be coming up next week, but next year's race is probably going to get moved elsewhere to be determined. Eduardo Mortara wins by 2.297 seconds over Antonio Felix DaCosta and Mitch Evans. Rounds out the podium. The Techeetah team gets second and fourth. Luca de Grassi, Mortara's teammate, finishes fifth. Defending world champion Nick DeVries is sixth. Jake Dennis for Andretti Autosports, seventh. Oliver Askew finished 11th, so good for him on that. Oliver Rowland gets point. Looks like there. Oliver Rowland was last point there for Mahindra in the race. The standings going to the New York E-Prix next week sees Mortara, after taking his third win of the year, takes an 11-point lead over Jean-Eric Verne and a 14-point lead on Stoffel Van Dorn. Was a 15-point lead on Mitch Evans. So it's a 4-horse race there in regards to the championship. Jean-Eric Verne has scored in every round this year. Stoffel Van Dorn has scored in all but one. Mitch Evans and Mortara have missed out on 2 races, but Mitch Evans has won 3 times as well, like Eduardo Mortara. Getting into Jean-Eric Verne has not won a race this year, but he's been uber consistent, finishing in the top 4 most of the year. Stoffel Van Dorn has 1 win, so it's kind of interesting how he's in that spot. We'll get the Extreme and Sardinia. They're going to have a doubleheader this coming weekend with Extreme, so go and bring that up. Point standings, see whatever Rosberg's team leading the points championship at the moment by 12 points over the Spanish duo of Sanz and Sainz. So we'll see what they can do there. And then the X44 team, Lewis Hamilton's team, is 15 points back with Gutierrez and Sebastian Loeb. Ganassi's team with Sarah Price, sexy Sarah Price, and Kyle LeDuc are 4th. And Emma Gilmore, Tanner Faust for McLaren are 5th. So they'll be racing these 2 races before we get to the Copper X Prix. You got Sardinia, then you had Saudi Arabia. Scroll to explore. What is that? I can't even scroll this to the point where. Oh, there you go. So then they'll be racing in Chile in September, end of September, and then the last race will be in end of November, around Thanksgiving time in Uruguay. So 2 races. This is where the championship could be. A lot of what the championship is going to be could be determined here in the spot with these 2 races, starting with the race tomorrow, and tomorrow on Wednesday the 6th and Thursday the 7th, and then they'll have a day off, then the 9th and the 10th for the second race. So a lot of things can be determined in these 2 races. WEC Championship 2022. That's exactly what I want. FIA WEC going into Monza for the 6 hours. You have 6 hours of Monza. More about this race. Bring that up. 11 turns, blah, blah, blah. Participants, 38 cars in this race. As I mentioned, of course, there will be 6 cars in this class. You'll have the 2 Toyotas, the Alpine, the 8. I think it was it was the 8 car that won the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then you have the 7 car, Mike Conway, Kamui Kobayashi, Jose Maria Lopez. And the 7, Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, both Red Bull juniors, previously in Rio Hirakawa. And the 8, Negral, Lapierre, Vaxvier, and the 36. Peugeot makes their debut in the hypercar category. DeResta, Mikkel Jensen, John-Eric Verne in the 93. Loic Duval, Gustavo Menezes, the American, and James Rossiter drive the number 94. Then the Glickenhaus 708, American-based team, Olivier Pla, Romain Dumas, and Pippo Dorani make up the driver lineup there. And it's like this website blows. It really does blow. It should go and give you an entry list or something. Classification, whatever. There you go. Classification. The points right now going into this race, the 6 hours of Monza, sees the 38 Alpine team in the lead over, not 38. I don't know what the hell number they are. But it says that was from the points they had there. So the Alpine team leads by 3 points over Hartley, Hirakawa, and Buemi in the 8 Toyota. Pla and Dumas are in 3rd. They're 12 points behind. So that's really the points battle there in the Hypercar Championship. In manufacturers, Toyota, of course, leads that. FI World Endurance. So that's for that's GT. Jimmy Bruni and Richard Leitz lead their teammates, Kevin Estra and Michael Christensen, by 3 points in the Porsches. Paraguidi and Collado and the Ferrari are only 5 points back. So that's the battle there. Porsche and Ferrari, there's a little bit of separation. It was a 26 points there. LMP, 2 drivers, Antonio Felix da Costa, Roberto Gonzalez, Will Stevens lead the points over Josh Pearson and Oliver Jarvis by 11. In regards to Pro-Am, the Rivera, Parado, Nielsen lead the points by 8 over James Allen and Rene Binder and Stephen Thomas. LMP2 teams, Joda Sport leads by 11 over United Autosports USA. Pro-Am's AF course by 8 points over Algarve Pro Racing. And GTM drivers, Ben Keating along with Marco Sorensen lead the points over David Pittard, Nicky Team, and Paul Dallalana. I think those are all the Aston Martin people. And then teams, the TF Sport number 33 has an 8-point lead over Northwest AMR, the Aston Martin team. So that's what it is over there. 38 cars running this weekend, 6 hours of Monza. There will be 2 races left after this, Fuji in Japan and Bahrain, which will see the debut of the Porsche LMDH. Last piece is Supercars at Townsville. There's been some news in regards to touring car? Yeah, in regards to the Supercars, James Golding is back driving full time. He'll be driving for Premier Racing Holden for the rest of the season. It says you got Super to expand the eligibility second tier to include all car of the future models. Oh, okay, so there you go. That current car is a filter down. So that'll add more cars to the grid. So that's great. Shane Van Gisbergen has a 120-point lead on Anton De Pasquale. Will Davison is in third going into this weekend's race. Cameron Waters fourth. Chaz Mostert fifth. Is that Aaron Seaton? Yeah. Will be making his debut with Jack LeBrock in the truck assist grandfather and 48 in the truck assist Holden number 34. So that'll be interesting. So history there, big names. Fourth wildcard joins Bathurst 1000 field. Goddard, Kosecki, yeah. Fourth wildcard, Matt Chada, yeah. Walkinshaw, United, Andretti United Holden for Chada himself, and he had to be Chada's long remaining second team. Excuse me. Triple Eight with Craig Lowndes, Declan Frazier, Erebus with Richie Stanway and Greg Murphy, even though Richie Stanway, and Anderson Motorsport, Michael Anderson, even though he doesn't have license to race. So something we will see. We'll see what happens with that. We'll go over all those things during the next episode of the Gripster podcast, everything that we went over here. So been talking for a bit, Josh, so I'm going to let you go and get into the Formula One. I personally think, I'm just going to put this out here before I go and take a minute. I think Max is going to win. It's a circuit that suits the Red Bull team. It is Red Bull's track. It's a track that has suited him no matter what. And Austria, Red Bull Ring, A1 Ring, whatever, Salzburg Ring, whatever the hell. It's a track where I think Red Bull goes and gets a win. Max Verstappen, I think Charles Leclerc finishes second and Lewis Hamilton finishes third. It's anything could happen, really. It's a very fast, tight circuit. You only run just over a minute for a lap, so it's a lot of laps you're going to be running there. Things happen quick, but I think Max Verstappen goes and gets the job done on Sunday. I don't know what you're looking at. I mean, there's a sprint race, actually, so qualifying will be on Friday afternoon, European time for the sprint. The sprint race will happen on Saturday, and that will set the grid for Sunday in the Austrian Grand Prix. But What are you looking for, Josh, in regards to the Austrian Grand Prix and the sprint and the whole bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this Grand Prix at Austria, it's pretty reasonable probably to expect Red Bull to win. I think, only if they have a issue with engine problems or something. Earlier in the year, this happened to Verstappen, and Sergio Perez also had issues as well. But right now, it looks like they're continuing to dominate the field. I mean, if it weren't for issue running over debris, I think Max Verstappen probably could have been the winner of the British Grand Prix. But having said all of that, I think they definitely have the favorite advantage to win. I think they're the team to beat here at Red Bull Ring, and it's their home racetrack, and there's a lot of fans that have support there. So definitely think that this is the race that they can win. I think either Verstappen or Sergio Perez can win, but obviously I think Verstappen probably is the one more than likely that could win. I think Sergio Perez could win if he has a chance. If Verstappen has a mistake or they have a misfortune or something that allows Verstappen to fall in the order and Perez to overtake him. So we'll see if that's possible. But I think for the other teams, it's just going to be trying to maximize their points in this weekend if they can't win. And I think for Leclerc, they got to be able to look out and not make any mistakes. Got to minimize things that can go wrong. Obviously, we talked about in the show that they have not had a podium since the Miami Grand Prix, which is on May 8th. It's now July 5. So the next race is on July 10. So it's going to be over 2 months since Charles Leclerc has last finished on the podium. It's a long time, and it's been, I think, about like 6 races now since that's happened. So he's got to get back on track here. So I think I certainly think he can do it, but also not sure how well they'll be able to do, because it's going to be a tough challenge. I think you have 2 Red Bull cars that are really good, and then you also have Mercedes starting to be on the rise with both Hamilton and George Russell. So it's going to be a challenge for the Ferrari team to finish on the podium. I think Lewis Hamilton probably challenges this weekend for a podium finish, in third. I think even though this is not quite as there's not going to be a lot of passing opportunities at this track. There's really only maybe like 1 or 2 opportunities to pass on the front stretch, and then after the second DRS straight. So it's going to be tough for anybody to make any real action, I think, this weekend. So if they're going to do it, it's going to have to happen after the first corner or going up to the second corner. So we'll see what happens in this race. But I think for Hamilton, he's going to have to again have a good car, good pace, which they've had in recent weeks. But I feel like this track might be a little bit different and may not suit them as much. But he's had good success here in the past when they had a good car. So we'll see what happens this coming weekend. I think for the other teams, I think George Russell, we'll see if he can recover from his crash here in the British Grand Prix, if he can come out to Austria and continue to compete and be alongside Lewis. So we'll see if he can do that. I think some of the other teams also, I think you have to maybe consider the AlphaTauri team as a bit of a wild card, especially it's kind of the junior team to Red Bull in Formula One right now. So I think Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, 2 guys that have been kind of under the radar this year. Pierre has been a whole lot better than Yuki Tsunoda, but he's definitely been a driver that's a wild card to watch. So we're gonna have to see what happens there. But I think other teams that could be potential wild cards here. You have Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon at Alpine Racing. This might be another circuit that suits their style, their car setup compared to the other teams. And I feel like even though it is a quick circuit, it's also a circuit where I feel like maybe it doesn't rely on top speed so much as acceleration, and so I think that might be a opportunity for some of these other teams outside of Red Bull to really take advantage and maybe focus more on handling in their cars rather than on outright speed. So we'll see what happens. But I think again, it's probably going to be a Red Bull weekend. But you never know. There could be other things that could happen and lead to possibly a surprise victory from one of the Ferrari cars or one of the Mercedes cars.
It's something to see. Mercedes has struggled at Austria, so I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. And then you think about it in a sprint race. It's more about consolidating position to get themselves into a place to actually go and have a chance on Sunday. So, I think Ferrari has a chance because they have great one-lap pace along with Red Bull. What can Leclerc do after a rough weekend? What can Sainz do coming off of his first win, as you already mentioned? And then you get into the midfield. You start with McLaren and Alpine. That battle, Lando Norris has done great at this racetrack. I have a hard time thinking he's going to go and get another podium, but he's always done well there. So that's one thing. You think about Alpine, they're very hit or miss. Can they go and keep that momentum up with Alonso and keep that battle going, or will they allow Alfa Romeo back into it, with Bottas and Zhou coming off of the horror crash that he had? The back three teams, of course, or back, 3 teams are going to go and do what they're going to do. Aston Martin, you never know with them. AlphaTauri back 4 teams. Yeah, AlphaTauri's been very inconsistent this year when you consider that Red Bull has the best car and then their junior team's car is not that good. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Then you have Haas. You never know. Depending on the circumstances, they could go really good or they could be really bad. And then Williams, they're struggling, trying to get more R&D on their new aero and all their upgrades that they brought to the table. They weren't really able to get much last week at Silverstone in regards to the upgrade package for Albon, because they only had one dry session. The qualifying was mixed, and then he got wrecked a few hundred meters into the race there. So we will see what happens. We'll talk about on episode 123 of the Grip Strip podcast what happens in Austria. NASCAR is the last thing we have to preview. The Cup and XFinity will be at Atlanta Motor Speedway, running the Super Speedway event there. They only have enough vehicles to fill the field, so there won't be anybody failing to qualify there for either the Quaker State 400 or the Alsco Uniforms 250. The Truck Series will be racing at Mid-Ohio. That field, there's only 36 trucks, including Mason Filippi, who's driving for G2G Racing, which is interesting since they weren't able to prepare a functional vehicle at Sonoma, but Mason Filippi decided he wanted to go back there. So I guess he's a glutton for punishment. So I'll throw to you again, Josh, to start it off. Give us, I think it's a good time to bring out the algorithm. We haven't brought it out in a while. We've been going long. So it is a super speedway race. So we probably, we might as well do it on the Truck Series side too, because it is a road course race and trucks on road courses, and there are no ringers. I guess Justin Marks is a ringer, but he's very rusty. He's more of an owner these days.
Yeah. He's also a former winner, so.
He's a former winner at that racetrack in an Xfinity car and in other series, but I don't remember the last time he was in a truck. I think it's a good time to bring out the algorithm, personally.
Yeah, I'll bring it up here in a minute or two. But I think overall at this race, though, it's going to be a lot of, at Atlanta, it's going to be a lot of bump drafting.
Yeah, it's you got 4 You got 400 miles, 260 laps, so it won't be as brutal as the 500-mile race was there earlier this year. You know, the racing we saw in the spring. You know, you talk about how racing went there. Briscoe got the pole because of points. I think that was one of the only races where they used the algorithm. Byron led the most laps. A bunch of people led laps in that race. After William Byron, I think, was it Ross Chastain led the second most laps, then Clyde, and then Ricky Stenhouse. Oh, Richard! Gagson wrecked 23 laps into the race and fell out. So just keep that in mind. Kyle Busch got wrecked early in that race. So did Cindric. There's and Stenhouse. Larson and Hamlin wrecked in the same crash. There, Reddick coming off of his win, he only finished 28th in the race in the spring or late winter. Greg Biffle got a top 20 finish for the whatever, I don't know what the hell they're called, team.
What's their? Forgot their NY Racing or something.
NY Racing, yeah. Briscoe started on pole and finished 15th. But yeah, you're talking about, I mean, it's a wild card race. It's very narrow. Corey LaJoie actually finished 5th. I think that's his best finish of his career. He got his best finish of his career at Atlanta earlier this year. And Buescher at a top 10. Haley was just outside the top 10. Bubba Wallace had a chance to win that race. Got wrecked. Eric Jones was up there as well. Bilicki got a top 20 along with Reagan and BJ McLeod. So it's a typical super speedway race. Byron was the dominant figure, though. He had one of the fastest race cars and got up there and won that deal. I don't see much changing because the aero is the same. So I have a hard time believing anything's really going to change in that spot. But I'll let you go and do your thing. Is it up? Are you ready?
I've got for the Cup Series, yeah. So, yeah, just running this right now. The algorithm says that BJ McLeod will win the Quaker State 400. That's an incredible hedge, but nonetheless, that's what it says.
I need to go and look up the odds now because the algorithm just said so. Odds for Quaker State 400. All right. Quaker State 400. Vegas odds for this 19th race of the season. They're only showing, wow, this is a bad website. You're only showing about 5 people. Like, how the hell are you going to go? Yeah, there you go. We'll get the whole bit because it's CBS Sports Line. So 500 to 1. Oh, no, that's from last year. I'm pretty sure it's the same. Yeah, there you go. Jeffy Bet. All right. I don't know who the hell this person is. Yeah, so Dark Horse, Kurt Busch. Like, how the hell are you going to go? Like, give us all the damn odds. Like, what is wrong with you people? Quaker State Green looks Vegas odds. That's 2020. Co-favorites. Oh, okay. Odds checker. Okay. So, odds checker. Futures winner. Bubba Wallace is 14 to 1. That's interesting. Chastain's 12 to 1. Byron's 11 to 1. Elliott and Blaney are 10 to 1. I'm trying to get the odds for this race, but we can't seem to get those. Vegas odds. So 2022 Quaker State 400 odds. sbglobal.eu. All right. We're going into this because I'm curious because the algorithm gave us the same kind of algorithm. I'm getting an Ernie Irvan. There's an Ernie Irvan picture on this website from his win at Richmond in 1996. His second win of that year, the Miller 400, the night race at Richmond. That just makes my heart warm. Just makes me feel good about the world. Seeing that, but they don't odds whatever. They didn't bring it up. Dating time event now. SBG Orton betting odds. Jesus, this website fucking blows. I feel like Stern right now. Just going in. I give up. I don't care. I'm pretty sure it's like 500 to 1.
It's pretty high odds or low odds.
I probably should go and look for it, and I'll bet it. I'll put like a $10 bill on it. Why not? If BJ McLeod hits at 500 to 1, I'll be very happy about that. It's kind of one of those deals. You only get the winner, right, in your algorithm?
Yeah, I only give the winner here. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So let's before you get into your actual analyst, before you get into your expert analysis, which is what we all listen to you for, Josh, you're telling us what we should expect on Sunday. It won't be a Chevy benefit, hopefully, even though you are a Chevy guy. But
yeah,
what do you have?
I got the odds for BJ McLeod. Barstool Sportsbook says that BJ McLeod is plus 50,000 to win.
Yeah, that's 500 to 1.
Okay, so 500, yeah. And Ryan Blaney plus 1,000, so that's
10 to 1.
10 to 1. So yeah, there you go. So
yeah, it's him and what is it called? Clyde and Blaney are the co-favorite at 10 to 1.
And Chastain's 10 to 1 also.
Oh, I saw Chastain at 12. So there you go. So Chastain, of course, who led the second most laps in March. Clyde, who's not known as a great super speedway racer, as the co-lead there is interesting. Blaney is a great super speedway racer. He just doesn't know how to close, generally, or at Daytona or elsewhere, other than Talladega. He's a closer at Talladega. That makes sense. So, I mean, if you're betting, I would figure you hedge with like a Hendrick or a Trackhouse car just for the safety. But Blaney is one of the people you got to look at for sure. Penske cars are good. Logano always figures out a way to be somewhere there. Former winner of the 500, former winner at Talladega. After that, you're just throwing money out there. Honestly, which if you're gonna put a 10 spot on a 500 to 1 shot, which I'm probably gonna do after this show, I'll do it so I can go and be very happy if it comes off. But that would be something if BJ McLeod can actually make that happen. That would be the thing. BJ McLeod can't get into the playoffs, though. His car could get into the playoffs because they've run every week. But he himself wouldn't be eligible for the playoffs because he's given his car up to Kyle Tilley on the road courses. So that would be its own separate...
Yeah, it's the owner's points playoff.
Yeah, that would be the separate thing. So Matt Tiff would be able to get into the playoffs as a car owner, since him and BJ McLeod owned that team. So that'd be something. So I don't know if you have anything more on the Cup Series, but I think you should just go and throw to the XFinity Series, because if you got BJ McLeod for the Cup side, I don't know what the hell to expect on the XFinity or the truck side now. Now I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Cup side is, it's going to be same racing except at night that we saw in March, and just a lot of choo-choo train around, too wide racing, bump drafting, blocking, that sort of thing. I think guys gonna try to make a momentum up on the top, and then try to cut down to the bottom to try to make a pass, and like a type of a slingshot or a slide job type of pass, but you're going to need a lot of help to win. So it's going to come down to who can block the best, and then if two guys behind him can get together and make a run for the win, just like we saw in March, and it's going to be maybe a little bit more interesting with new pavement, and we're running at night. Outside, I mean, it's going to be hot in Georgia. I mean, it's hot right now, but you're running later in the day, so theoretically the pavement should get cooler as the race progresses. So expect by the end, just a lot of. It's going to be a lot of disrespect, I think, on the track. They're going to be guys doing things that they don't normally do, trying to grab a spot for the NASCAR playoffs here later this year. So I think that's what's going to happen. But the XFinity series, we got number 44, Sage Karam for Alpha Prime Racing. So goes from getting crashed out by Noah and goes out and wins the Alsco Uniforms 250 on on Friday night. So it's just as unlikely as BJ McLeod, although Sage is proven himself on the IndyCar side, so that's another 500 to 1 odds there on how to race on ovals. And I mean, could happen, but he's got to have the speed to be able to do it. So we'll see. I mean, I think Alpha Prime. I mean, I don't know how they finished this year, but I feel like this track, as long as you keep it clean, maybe you can sneak a top 10 in there. So we'll see.
Yeah, so it's a Saturday afternoon and an evening race for the XFinity, since the trucks will be running earlier in the afternoon at Mid-Ohio. Talking about Alpha Prime, Tommy Joe Martins finished 20th earlier this year at Atlanta. And then I'm looking for who the hell was driving the 44 was Sage Karam, finished 32nd. Got taken out in a wreck with it looks like Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier. So that would be interesting. If Sage Karam was coming off a massive wreck, can he get his redemption? He's been chasing his redemption from what happened with the accident that took Justin Wilson's life back in 2015, and it's kind of been a part of what has affected him and affected his career in a lot of ways. It was unintentional, getting wrecked, going and running for the lead at Pocono, and then the debris flew up, and part of the reason why there's a cockpit surround now in IndyCar with a halo because of that incident. Sage Karam's a great race car driver. It's not my bias because he's a Northeast guy. He's from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. The guy's proven it in multiple levels. Ganassi gave up on him because he's an American. Honestly, that's what he does. If they're international drivers, he gives them all the time they need. But if you're an American, you have to be able to do it, and you have to do it immediately. Graham Rahal, he kept around longer than I thought he would, and Charlie Kimball, he kept around because he had the freaking diabetes money. So if Karam goes and wins for Alpha Prime, that'd be something after last week for sure. I guess I'm going to be betting on long shots, which is the way you go and gamble, I guess. But, it is what it is. The algorithm has been in hibernation for a while, so maybe it's a little rusty in regards to its randomization. But one thing I'll say, Ty Gibbs actually won this race in the spring and beat Austin Hill, who won at Daytona. AJ Adder-Allmendinger, who led the most laps in the race. Gagson started on pole at 38 laps. Bain led 38 laps. Getting into the entry list, I'm trying to see. The 18 car is going to be driven by Ryan Truex with Auto Owners Insurance. So no Trevor Bain. Jeffrey Earnhardt will be driving for Sam Hunt Racing, coming off of his Talladega runner-up. Myatt Snyder will be driving his regular car, but, trying to put himself in a position to get a win, to get himself in the playoffs. Cesar Baccarella will be in the 45 car, so that's just a waste. Tyler Reddick will be in the 48, so that's if Tyler Reddick can put himself in a spot to win, he knows how to win. on a super speedway. You consider the points right now in the Xfinity series. If a regular that struggled, a la Sheldon Creed, some of these other people, Landon Castles on the back end of the points, like Daniel Hemrick, Alfredo's outside of the points with Burton, Jeb Burton, and Brett Moffitt. Any of those guys can go and get a win. Jeremy Clements, Brandon Brown, Massey had a great run in March. You could go and flip the playoffs on its lid if you can go and make something happen in this race on Saturday afternoon. So the last one we have to preview is the O'Reilly Auto Parts 150 at Mid-Ohio, the Truck Series race there. Driver points right now have Zane Smith up by 21 over John Hunter Nemechek, 30 points over Ben Rhodes, 35 over Chandler Smith. Those are the four, and Miss Friesen's won a race this year, so those are the top five. Those are all the ones that have all the points, really. In regards to the regulars, 10 drivers would make the playoff at the moment. 29 points separate Derek Kraus and Matt Crafton, who's on the bump spot. Derek Kraus has made another crew chief change. McAnally Hilgeman Racing has made another crew chief change, trying to get Derek Kraus into the playoffs. So that's something we will see. Josh, what's the algorithm saying for Mid-Ohio on a road course?
Well, it's a little bit more sane this time around, but maybe not as sane as what we think it is. And it's picking Chandler Smith to win on the road course at Mid-Ohio, which is a little bit more reasonable considering the team, Kyle Busch Motorsports. But, I don't really see Chandler Smith as a road course guy, but it certainly could happen on Saturday. So I expect this race also to be a demo derby. Don't really see anybody, outside of, Ben Rhodes, that and maybe a couple other guys that are really good at road courses. John Hunter Nemechek probably has to be good at road course racing, considering he's in the fight for the championship. So, outside of the drivers in the top 5, top 4 of the championship, expected to be a kind of a road wreck fest, I guess, like road course racing at this level tends to be. So expect a lot of that. So that's what I'm kind of doing the algorithm this week, and goes a little bit sane, picking a driver that's somewhat competitive in Chandler Smith in the number 18 car.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you have to take somebody who's a stable type of driver, whether they're a good road racer or not. Personally, I would go, you pick Chandler, I'll go with Zane. I'll go with Zane Smith, adds to his total towards his playoff points and the whole bit there. So we pick the Smith. You pick Chandler Smith, I pick Zane Smith for the Truck Series here this weekend as the tea kettle goes off. Josh, let us know what you're doing in regards to the sim racing side of things. F1 2022 is out. There's some other Gran Turismo has some updates and other things, but what are you doing in regards to sim racing?
Yeah, I mean, last weekend, during the weekend, played a lot of racing, going on Road America, little inspiration seeing the Cup Series, Xfinity Series run on that racetrack, and pretty much missed every corner that I could a bunch of times. Breaking into turn 1, downshifting from the Xfinity car from 4th to 2nd gear, or from 5th gear all the way down to 2nd or 3rd in the Cup car, and having brake lockup and stuff, or driving too deep into the corner, especially the Cup car, really thinking almost like you're braking in an Indy car, using the same brake lines there or braking zones there, and running into the gravel traps and stuff like that, running off course, losing basically wheel hopping and through the gravel trap into the tires, and pretty much destroying, for the Cup car, destroying the front end and the tires. So pretty much ran into as many problems as I could, but by the end, at least in the Xfinity car, I was able to still get a couple of good runs at it. So it was a lot of work having to go back and go offline and practice for a little bit and turn on the driving line and see where I needed to brake, because I used to run at Road America a lot in NASCAR 2003, and that was one of my favorite tracks running there, and I was going kind of off of memory there on how to do it, but iRacing is a little bit different, and well, not really different, it's the same game basically, but the braking zones are slightly different with the different car and whatnot, so that was kind of how I had to play it, and then I went back into the IndyCar and tested a little bit on Road America just to compare, and probably ran 3 seconds off of the pole time from the real life IndyCars this year, so or practice laps I think this year. So it was a little bit of testing there, and certainly pretty fast in the IndyCar. If I ever had to do that one on iRacing, just gotta maybe do a little bit more practice on that and get the corner exit speed down. That's probably the hardest part, is getting back onto the throttle, and you have a tendency to spin out once you apply the power back, so you gotta be careful getting back to the throttle on corner exit there. So and then in the Xfinity car also I spun out a bunch on corner exit in the carousel on corner exit. It would really want to snap loose on me there, which was annoying and everything, because you're supposed to be pretty much on the gas at that point, setting yourself up for the kink, and then kettle bottoms and Canada corner there. That's pretty much the setup, is where the momentum and the speed gets built up in the carousel there. So that's for me, that was pretty tough, but I had a lot of fun doing it. And then also am doing right now this week the Ferrari 458 series. Download that car, and Ferrari 458 Italia or whatever it's called, and running at Spa. So ran Spa for the first time in iRacing, and I mean it's pretty clean for the most part. I ran off track a couple of times in El Rouge, de Radion, and trying to run flat out through that corner and use up a little bit too much curve, and took off. Took some hit points on the off track penalties, so lost a little bit there. But trying to learn the track and everything, and managed to run well there. And then on the oval side, got Pocono Raceway in the NASCAR 87 car, so they're going to be still doing a lot of downshifting. Pocono's a roval, and the Cup car from 87 works well with the downshifting method. So if you can downshift from fourth to third gear and turns 1 and 2, same thing throughout all the corners, you're just moving between fourth and third because of the long straights. So that's what I plan to do, and then also try to do in the Indy Pro 2000 car, do Long Beach, try to run that track. Tried running it yesterday, and I don't know, it was very tough, and used up too much brakes, or not enough braking. Would run tight on corner exit and run into the tire barriers in turn 1 and some of the other corners. So having trouble there, but working through it and everything. So that's probably going to do this week on iRacing whenever I have the time. So we'll be able to, I might try to stream there, maybe for the Pocono stuff, and maybe for some of the other road course stuff if I feel like it. So I'll stream there, and I think that's it for that. I want to download F1 2022, but I need to be able to. I will download it, I think, probably, but be on the controller side on PlayStation. So download there. Although I think they do run on Steam on PC, so maybe I'll do that instead and test out the graphics there, see what it looks like versus the PlayStation. So we'll see. But yeah, you can always follow on Twitch TV/usailor2. So where all the streams will be on this side, and be able to watch whatever racing I have on there. Of course, watch all past racing I have. Indy 500 victory, of course. Always talk about that because that was pretty cool and everything. So be able to go in there and follow that. And then, of course, me on social, follow at JP Huffine, follow all the things that I'm into, and all the takes that I have with racing, with football, and all the other sports. So go on there and follow me and have a discussion and stuff like that, and go out and go about your day. So I'll turn it over to you, Phil. Forgot about the YouTube channel. I don't know why. I was about to turn it over to you. I was like, wait, we got to talk about the YouTube channel, and of course, which we're recording the video and going to post that here on YouTube later this week. I had the video recording. If you want to watch us on video stream, go on there and watch the YouTube channel and subscribe, like the video, comment, and give us feedback and stuff on there so we can continue to grow the page there. So yeah, now I'll turn it over to you for the rest of the close.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the YouTube page, you get to go and get us the raw, generally unedited feed on the Gripster podcast on YouTube. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find our show at Gripstrip Pod on Twitter. We're on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Verbal. You can also see me on the Grid Talk podcast. I do hits for their shows because they have a panel discussion over there. So I did the race review for the British Grand Prix and the race preview for the Austrian Grand Prix. George Howson and company do great job over there with their page and with what's it called? I'm forgetting about the page of the F1 Chronicle. The F1 Chronicle is over there as well, so check them out. They do a great job in regards to their coverage. But either way, thanks for listening to us. Go and keep supporting us. We're doing our thing because it's a passion. It's not freaking Brett Griffin, who's a ball licker and blocking Brett Griffin, and they're piggybacking off of Dale Jr. and his whole entire deal. I notice how my freaking eyebrows are. Yeah, well, whatever. That's fine. I probably chopped off too much over there, but either way. Thanks to you, Josh, as always, for being my right-hand man, my co-host, and carrying the deal when I need you to. Thanks to everyone that listens to us here on the Gripster Podcast. We'll be back next week for episode 123, covering everything that went on here in motorsports. We have Formula One, we have NASCAR, we have SRX, we have freaking F2, F3. I mean, other series. There'll be motorcycles will be back with World Superbike next week. So plenty to get into next week. If one of those 500-1 odds actually hit, whether it's BJ Mclaughlin or Sage Karam, I'll be very happy because I'm going to put I'll put $10 on it. I don't give a fuck. You only live once. Yeah. So with that, hopefully my bowling goes well on Thursday in league. I'm going to be doing practice tomorrow, practicing, I think, on Saturday, hanging out with some of my bowling friends on Sunday, and, just living life, having fun, trying to be around good people. And that's what it's all about, trying to live life and do the best we can while we're around good people. And that's what we have here on the Gripster Podcast. That's why Josh and I do this deal. Take care. God bless. And we will see you next week for E123 of the Gripster Podcast. Take care and goodbye.